Hello fellow FPL managers and welcome to the last video of the season, the preview for Game Week 38, the last game of the campaign. It's all to play for at the top of the table and for some of the Champions League spaces. So before we look at Game Week 38, let's just have a look in again at Game Week 37. And I don't think I was alone in a very disappointing week. So it started off terribly with a red card for Son and only 2 points for Eriksen and another disappointing Spurs display. I've said out of all the top teams, it feels like Spurs have been one of the biggest letdowns in terms of FPL points. I just thought it was funny at one point someone had proclaimed my predictions are terrible because of Son getting sent off, but I was not the only one who had suggested Son. It was a good pre-match shout, and I think looking at hindsight, it's easy to say it's a bad decision because he's got a red card, but who would have really thought that he was going to see red this week? And Spurs would not have done anything against Bournemouth, but also equally frustrating. You can see I've got Wilson on the pitch only scoring 2 points and Fraser bagging 9 right at the end with an assist. So I just felt a little bit unlucky here, getting in that situation. Decent defensive display is the only reason that I've got a semi-respectable score. But I was going into Monday Night Football thinking it's not too bad. I've got 2 of the top Manchester City assets to play with the captain's armband. And again, I have just been let down. I don't think a Manchester City player has hauled for me this season. It has been a really, really difficult season for me. And I've said this before again in the last few weeks. I'm really going to be looking into my tactics, trying to stay more patient and really sort of knuckling down because I didn't start the season. The first half of the season was difficult. I had to play catch up a lot towards the end, and then everything that could have gone against me unfortunately has, but that's the end of my dismal ways. But first key suggestion I'm going to say, you can see I still do have Son in my side. That is obviously going to change. And a lot of people have been talking about who to replace him for. Do you do a like for like in the terms of Pogba because he's around the same price range? But there aren't really any players in the price range of Son that are kind of worth it. So I personally was thinking of putting in Bernardo Silva, but not even starting Bernardo Silva, but starting Fraser, who has quite a tasty fixture away at Crystal Palace. I have quite a few Palace and Bournemouth players, and I do feel that that game has goals in it. They've not really got anything to play for. I think they're just going to go out and go for it. I think it could be a goal fest. I'm hoping that is going to be the case. So as for replacing Son, which a lot of people obviously do have, you might be looking at downgrading. I wouldn't really be taking a points hit in the last week because you're not future planning, and remember there's no way to make up these points. So if you take so for example, if I take out Son and I put in someone cheaper just to sit on my bench and I'm sat there and I know I've got 2 million in the bank and I know I'm going to be staring at it thinking I could improve Bednarak, or I could improve maybe change out Wan-Bissaka, or Borough keeper's probably not going to play, so Patricio's going to play away at Liverpool. That's not very good for points. But you're going to have to get a player that at the very least, scores a goal or gets an assist to make it even worth it just a tiny bit. Of course, that is a risk in FPL. And it's easy when you look at it in hindsight, but I'm looking at the team thinking, yeah, Bednarak is not great, but is at home to Huddersfield. I'm not going to take out Yedlin for a top player and think that someone is going to outscore Bednarak by a minimum of 4 points. I would be looking for Bednarak and Southampton to possibly get a clean sheet. I'm not thinking he's going to get a goal, but I'm not going to be getting a -4 hit, taking Bednarak out just to get a player in, just so I don't have money sat in the bank. So I'm going to try and refrain myself. So if I change Son for Bernardo Silva or maybe even David Silva, then I possibly won't start him. I had an idea of going for Wijnaldum because he's just an insane Liverpool performance, but also the fact that we don't know if Firmino and Salah are going to be back. So this is why I'm saying definitely wait. This will be one of the few times when I really say wait for this transfer, because the team news, I've already heard some things about apparently Wolves are actually going to be resting some players against Liverpool. I feel that Watford are going to rest some players ahead of the FA Cup final. Apart from the likes of the title and Champions League chasing sides, I would not be surprised if we're seeing a lot of changes. So maybe Wan-Bissaka doesn't play. Maybe Zaha doesn't play. Maybe, Wilson doesn't play because they've got nothing to play for. Gives a young player a debut, like the goalkeeper for Bournemouth last week against Tottenham. There's nothing to play for. Give some young lads a debut. So hang fire until you definitely get some team news in there. So as well as my performance, my predictions weren't that great. Obvious choices. I'm not obviously going to tick that because it's obvious. But Chelsea battering Watford 3-0. Hazard getting 2 assists as well. Again, he seems to be doing well since I've taken him out of the side, which is the story of my season. Aguero blanking against Leicester City. It was always going to be a pretty tough game. They had to definitely get a goal, and you would think it would come from Sergio Aguero or maybe Sterling. You don't think it's going to be an absolute screamer from Vincent Kompany, but there you go, that's football. Aubameyang did get a goal in a very disappointing 1-1 home draw against Brighton, another team that has vastly underperformed. It does feel, and I mentioned this last week, that those Champions League chasing sides are just really trying to bottle it in games where they should be picking up not just points but getting some goals and getting a lot of FPL points. They've really been letting down. And finally, speaking of letting people down, Heung-min Son really out of character. Is it harsh? Yes, but in today's game, if you raise a hand to someone's face or ear or neck or chest, they're going to go down. That's exactly what happened, and he should have known better there. Kind of a rush of blood to the head, which is really unfortunate. I think he'd have probably done well for the rest of that game and maybe even next week, but he's definitely put a spanner in the works for a lot of FPL managers there. Lacazette not doing anything in the game as well. That same game against Brighton, really disappointing. You would have thought Arsenal would have got quite a few goals against Brighton. Brighton have patched up their defence of late when they were on sort of a path to relegation with that horrible form that they had, but again, Arsenal letting people down. Lukaku didn't play. I had thought about Lukaku before finding out the full condition of his injury, so that ruled him out. And then you can see Zaha had I think not only did he pick up a goal against Cardiff, but I think he actually played really well. And Cardiff, I believe, Crystal Palace, I think, are like something like the second or third best away side. They seem to really get results away from home, and they play some really nice football at times. So it was a bit of a miss this week, but I know I was definitely not alone in having a particularly underwhelming game week 37. So going on to the final predictions of the season. So play to avoid. If you actually have a look at the fixtures, and I will just pop them back on the screen for a second. To be honest, there are not really any players or teams that I want to avoid. The only thing I would suggest is to avoid teams that don't have something to play for against the teams that do have something to play for. So, for example, Brighton and Man City. You would probably avoid Brighton anyway, but Man City must win. And Brighton have nothing to play for. Arsenal. Burnley have nothing to play for. Arsenal are trying, as unlikely as it is, to try and get Champions League football. Burnley might give a couple of debuts to some to young players, or try out some fringe players, or maybe to try a new tactic. Crystal Palace and Bournemouth, both teams don't have anything to play for here, but this is why I think this is something you shouldn't avoid, purely because I just have a feeling that similar to what I'm going to say about Fulham and Newcastle as well, I just feel like they're playing without pressure, and I think there's goals to be had there. They've been scoring goals points, all four of these sides, so I would maybe actually think that you would see a lot of goals. So the simple advice here is, if a team has something to fight for and they're playing a team that doesn't have anything to fight for, then I would probably avoid those players and fixtures. I would be leaning heavily towards Liverpool more than Man City, because I think Man City would be a little bit more cautious because, of course, Liverpool and Man City have to win, but Man City are in the driving seat, and I don't think that they'll score one and then keep pushing. I think they'll be happy. They've been doing quite a few low-scoring wins of late, just making sure feeling a bit of the pressure, but they are getting the results, and I think that might be the same against Brighton, who I think will provide a stubborn defense. I don't see them scoring against Manchester City, and I can see that being quite a low-scoring Man City win, whereas Liverpool are going to be pushing and fighting tooth and nail at home against Wolves, and they're going to be buoyed by that fantastic Barcelona result. So I would be suggesting avoiding those teams with nothing to play for, that against teams with something to play for. So going on to the actual players, Mane would be the choice for me here. Salah and Firmino are a doubt, so Mane is going to be your main attacking threat there. And like I said, Liverpool are going to be really going for it against Wolves. Wolves apparently going to be resting a couple of players as it is. I believe they've already secured Europe, so I think they're going to be trying something out and just sort of enjoying the day. Liverpool are going to be going for it. Don't get me wrong though, if they do play a strong side, Wolves have an excellent record against the top 6 sides this season and away from home. So if Wolves do start with the full starting 11 and they play with that kind of freedom that they have been kind of all season, then I'm not saying Wolves are out of it, but I just personally wouldn't be picking them for my team this week. Manchester City, you can see I've gone for Laporte, and that is because I believe that not only are Manchester City possibly going to be a little bit more defensive, a little bit more conservative, but I don't feel the attacking threat from Brighton, that they're not been banging the goals in this season. They have helped to stop leaking as many goals as of late, but Laporte himself has been in fine form. He is a top scoring Manchester City defender. He has got no less than 6 points in the last 4 game weeks. And if you extend that to game week 32, he's only blanked once. So from game week 32 to game week 37, he's only got 2 points. But amongst that, he's got 6, 7, 9, 9, and 11. So he is actually in a great bit of form. Of course, he's been overshadowed by the Liverpool defenders, Robertson, Van Dijk, and Alexander-Arnold, but Laporte is 4th in the FPL for defenders, and his form is right up there at the top. And I am going to maybe half-heartedly suggest Paul Pogba. They're at home to Cardiff, and I feel that when you not just look at the teams, but look at the midfield, Pogba, he's going to overrun that Cardiff midfield. But again, we thought they were going to thump Huddersfield and they didn't. So it just depends what Pogba's going to come out. But he did hit the bar or post a couple of times in the last game. And I do feel that he's due something. And if you're going to get it, it's going to be at home to Cardiff. And with his future in the air and his kind of attitude of, I'm going to prove people wrong, this might be the game where he sort of goes for it and just hauls. So, and it's difficult not to suggest Paul Pogba. He's not been in form for a while now, but I just feel that home tie against Cardiff is possibly a pretty good one for him, especially with a lot of people who are going to take out Son. I'm not too sure who they want to bring in. Pogba isn't, I don't think, too bad of a shout. Going on to my players to risk, and you see Nathan Redmond. So Southampton, Huddersfield. I wanted to pick a Southampton player. I think they're going to be delighted. They're safe. I think they're going to play quite attacking football. And I was going to think of an outside punt for maybe somebody like Long or Danny Ings up front. But if you want to get some points and you're catching up people in your mini leagues, or you want to get that higher overall rank, I do feel that although we only played 45 minutes in the last game, I feel that Nathan Redmond would be a good shout. But again, wait for that press conference just in case you hear something along the lines of, okay, we're going to play some of our younger players, because that could be a danger in this situation, because not only are they playing a dead rubber match, but they are playing against the lowest side in the Premier Division. So if this is a time where you still want to get 3 points, but try out some youth players, it probably would be at home to Huddersfield, unfortunately. But if he does play, I do feel like he will be a key attacking threat. Moving on, you can see Arnautovic, West Ham travelling to Watford. It's not that I feel, Watford, stat-wise, have been conceding a lot of chances and quite a few goals, but I'm feeling that in regards to teams resting players, Watford have the FA Cup final, and they've got nothing really to play for in the league, so I just feel that they're going to be resting players for that final, and that might give West Ham and Arnautovic the chance to get quite a few goals and a few FPL points. I would have leaned more towards Felipe Anderson, but he does currently have a yellow flag for illness, so if you have either of them, if Anderson plays, I would have suggested him first, but that yellow flag always kind of puts me off a little bit, and I do feel that Arnautovic might have a good game against Watford. He did get 2 goals in the last game at home to Southampton, and he got an assist in the previous game away to Tottenham. So the last 2 games he's been in good form. He did look really good against Southampton, and he did finish 90 minutes. So he is, he does usually get dragged off between the 65 and 80 minute mark, but he did a full 90 minutes. He had a really, really good game, 2 goals and an assist. 2 goals and a clean sheet, and I do feel that he is going to perform well against Watford. And finally, going on to Rondon, like I said, I feel that there are going to be goals in those games where there's nothing to play for either team, and Rondon and Perez have struck up a really, really good partnership of late. And looking back at his previous few games, he got a goal and assist against Liverpool when they've really put a scare and a big fight up against Liverpool at home. But he got an assist against Brighton in the game before that, and an assist against Southampton in the game before that. So you could argue for Perez as well being suggested, who's been in just as great form. He got a hat-trick in that game week 35 game against Southampton, and then a goal in just the 32 minutes he played away against Brighton in game week 36. But I just feel that Rondon, his physicality in the air, and the fact that if he doesn't get a goal, he does tend to get an assist, so he would be my last one to choose there. So that's going to be it for this game week, and hopefully you've enjoyed the season a lot more than I have. I'm thinking I'll be doing a look back video possibly in the next week or two, looking back at some of the plays of the season and the sort of best FPL team of the year, but not the ones that necessarily had the highest points, one that maybe a team that you could have afforded from the start. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, and hopefully you've enjoyed this season. I definitely will be looking into improving my personal game for the next season. I did look over the summer. I was looking. I thought I made the right choices. The World Cup kind of put my start of the season on hold a little bit, with players not starting straight away, and that was kind of my fault, I would say, because I thought certain players would get rested and they didn't, and the players I didn't think would get rested actually for some reason did. But hopefully it'll be a better season next season, and I'll be able to get that rank so people won't kind of give me a bit of grief in the comments. But thank you for watching this season, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I definitely still love this game, as much as it kills me inside at times. In terms of my own footballing experience, I'm a Bolton Wanderers supporter, and if you don't know about that, just Google it and you'll know the pain I'm suffering with that as well. So hopefully it's going to be fine, and as always, guys, have a good one.